All right, today we're unpacking one of the most dramatic stories in business history. We're talking about how Apple, a company literally on the brink of death, was resurrected by the very same person it had fired, its iconic and, yeah, pretty controversial co-founder, Steve Jobs. You know, this quote, this wasn't just some clever marketing slogan. This was pure Steve Jobs. It was his personal philosophy. It's the core idea that drove everything we're about to explore. This belief that a few passionate, crazy people really can change the world. Honestly, if you want to understand his story, this right here is the key. So the big question is, how did he pull it off? How did a guy once fired from his own company come back and engineer maybe the greatest corporate turnaround in history? Well, the story really breaks down into three acts. You've got this meteoric rise, then a stunning fall, and finally a comeback that changed, well, pretty much everything. Okay, so Act 1, Garage to Exile. And yeah, it all kicks off in that now legendary garage with a partnership that didn't just build a company. It sparked a full-on revolution. Apple's early genius really boiled down to this perfect partnership. On one side, you had Steve Wozniak, the engineer's engineer, an absolute wizard who could make hardware do things nobody thought possible. And on the other side, Steve Jobs, the visionary. He's the one who looked at Woz's raw genius and saw how to package it, how to market it, and how to get it into the hands of millions. It's simple, really. Wozniak built the circuit board, Jobs saw the future. And their first real blockbuster? The Apple II. And you have to understand, this wasn't some kit for techie hobbyists. No, this was a fully assembled computer that came with color graphics, which was huge. It sold over 5 million units. I mean, that's just a staggering number for the time. It didn't just build a company, it basically created the entire personal computer market and turned Apple into a total phenomenon. But Jobs, he was already looking past the Apple II. He makes this now legendary visit to Xerox PARC. And he sees the future. He sees graphical interfaces and the mouse, and he becomes absolutely obsessed. His next big project, the Macintosh, well, it wasn't just a product for him. It was a full-blown crusade to make computers creative, intuitive, and, as he put it, a computer for the rest of us. And to make this happen, Jobs recruits the CEO of Pepsi, John Sculley, with that all-time legendary pitch. Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to come with me and change the world? How do you say no to that? But their styles completely clashed. And when the Mac's initial sales stumbled, the board had to make a choice. Do they go with the predictable, safe operator, Sculley, or the volatile, unpredictable visionary, Jobs? They chose Sculley. And just like that, in 1985, Steve Jobs was stripped of all his power and resigned from the very company he created. Which brings us to Act 2, the wilderness years. With its visionary founder now cast out, Apple was basically left without a soul. And it didn't take long for the company to completely lose its way. So while Apple is just descending into total chaos, launching this confusing flood of products that nobody understood, something really fascinating is happening with Jobs. These so-called wilderness years were actually incredibly formative for him. Over at his new company, Next, he's mastering the kind of sophisticated operating systems that Apple was desperate for. And at this little animation studio he bought called Pixar, he was learning how to merge cutting-edge technology with really powerful emotional storytelling. He didn't know it yet, but he was gathering the exact tools he was going to need for his big return. I mean, just look at how bad things got for Apple. By 1996, the company was in an absolute freefall. We're talking a staggering loss of over $1 billion. Their market share, once dominant, now collapsed to around 3%. The brand was a mess, the strategy was non-existent, it was a full-on death spiral. The situation got so dire that Fortune magazine literally ran a cover story asking, "Is Apple toast?" The company was, by most accounts, just 90 days away from going bankrupt. So, in a final, desperate move to get a modern operating system, they did something shocking. They bought Steve Jobs' company Next for $429 million. And with that purchase, they brought their exiled founder back home. And that kicks off Act 3, the second coming. Jobs didn't just return as some advisor either. He became the interim CEO. He had a plan. And it was about to change, well, everything.
his turnaround strategy was as ruthless as it was brilliant, and you can really see it in 4 clear stages. First, triage, stop the bleeding. Second, rebrand, find the company's soul again. Third, rebuild, focus everything on one single great product. And finally, number 4, revolutionize. Use that new foundation to go out and disrupt entire industries.
Okay, so step 1 was triage, and it was brutal. He famously walks up to a whiteboard, draws a simple 2x2 grid, pro, consumer, desktop, portable, and just declares, we're only going to make 4 products. He canceled everything else. Just like that, 70% of Apple's product line was gone. See, for Jobs, strategy wasn't about deciding what to do. It was about having the courage to decide what not to do.
Next up, rebrand. And here's the crazy part. With no new products even ready to ship yet, Jobs' first launch was just an idea. The Think Different campaign, it was a masterpiece. It didn't show a single computer. Instead, it showed these iconic portraits of rebels and visionaries. It was this incredibly powerful rallying cry, reminding not just the world, but Apple's own demoralized employees what this company was all about. It was a signal that Apple had found its soul again.
Then came the rebuild phase, and it was all pinned on one product, the iMac. It was this colorful, all-in-one computer that looks like nothing else on the market. Its slogan was, sorry, no beige. I mean, what a defiant statement. And the result? It sold 800,000 units in just the first 5 months. It was a massive success that single-handedly pulled Apple back into the black.
So now, with Apple stable again, Jobs unveils his grand vision. The Mac wasn't just going to be a computer anymore. No, it was going to be the digital hub for your entire life. The idea was that all your other devices, your camera, your music player, eventually your phone, they would all revolve around the Mac. It would create this seamless, integrated experience that just worked. And the very first spoke in that hub was the iPod. And it delivered on such a simple but brilliant promise: 1,000 songs in your pocket. When you paired that with the iTunes Music Store, it created this perfect, seamless ecosystem for music that didn't just dominate the market, it completely blew up and then rebuilt the entire music industry from the ground up.
And then, 2007, the product that would define his entire legacy. On stage, Jobs totally plays with the audience. He says he's announcing 3 revolutionary products: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet device. The crowd goes wild. But it wasn't 3 devices. It was 1 device, and he called it the iPhone. It would go on to become the single most profitable product in human history. No exaggeration. But it didn't stop there. A year later, they launched the App Store. And this is what turned the iPhone from just a great device into a truly limitless platform. It created a massive new economy literally out of thin air and built this powerful walled garden ecosystem that competitors to this day find almost impossible to replicate.
And finally, there was the iPad. You know, a lot of critics were skeptical at first. They were asking, what is this thing even for? But Jobs, he saw a whole new category of device, something that fit perfectly between a smartphone and a laptop. It cemented that whole digital hub strategy and really solidified Apple's dominance in this new post-PC world that he had been envisioning for years.
And through this entire journey, Jobs was driven by this one core philosophy, one he laid out in a famous Stanford commencement speech: stay hungry, stay foolish. It's this simple, powerful call to action. Never be satisfied, and always be willing to take risks and trust your gut. So when you boil it all down, what exactly was the Jobs effect? Was it his uncompromising and, often brutal vision? Was it his incredible resilience, coming back from such a huge failure? Or was it his relentless, almost religious obsession with simplicity? You know, looking back, the true lesson might be that it wasn't just one of these things. It was the chaotic, brilliant, and totally inseparable fusion of all 3.